when they see folks like us running, folks that they know, people that have grown up in the community, people that actually pick up a phone call and show up, I think that really does sway moderates and conservatives our way, especially in this crazy, chaotic environment that 45 and the rest of his administration has caused recently. It opens the door for conversations that I could not have had with people 4 years ago, 8 years ago, especially not during the Bush years, because you're running against a different mindset from the other side at that point. So when I go up now and I'm talking to the farmer down the street and I say, hey, I want to talk about the rural hospital, I can actually have a conversation now. It's not him just shutting me down and screaming Democrat and everything else. So I think for me, what I'm seeing, in the different counties we're going to, it's that we have an opportunity now to actually have conversations, to talk one-on-one with our neighbors and people that we would normally shut down over politics, and really say, look, this is Chase, this is Mariah, this is Matt, like, you know us. That's why we want your vote. You know us, and you know what we're going to do when we get to Nashville. So that's what I'm seeing. It's opening a lot of doors that, a decade ago would not have been possible.
Great. Thank you, Chase. Any other Chris, would you like to comment on this?
Yes, thanks for your question, Judy. So I want to talk Rutherford County specific. So our campaign, if I can actually kind of show you right here, every day we look at top supporters. So Judy, it's gonna be hard to see. I'll send a screenshot later. And so what we've been doing is, I had a primary opponent, a strong opponent, but we felt pretty confident about that. But we have spent months reaching out to non-Democrats, because you and I know, everyone on this knows that every Democrat on God's green earth can vote for us, but we still need about 20% more, give or take. Brandon needs about 3 or 4% more. Mariah maybe 10. Other folks maybe 10. But what we have found, and I know the other folks are doing this, and what we have found is there's incredible openness to voting for non-Republicans, and it's what the president has been a part of that for sure. But I think too, what you have 3 candidates, I believe 4 candidates, who's not our first rodeo. They know us. Mariah Phillips, over 100,000 folks voted for her, give or take 100,000 folks voted for her last time. Brandon Thomas, he's been voted for before. We're not new entities. We've had time and place in our community, and we can vouch for folks like Chase, who's from Fayetteville. And so what we're seeing is my campaign thinks for me to win this election, I need about 151,000 votes, 151,711. But who's counting? We need about 45,000 non-Democrats. And we're targeting about 25,000 non-Democrats right here in Rutherford County. And I know these other campaigns have been working hard on reaching out to them, and the Republicans have not been working hard. Shelley finally decided to put up yard signs, 55 days before the election. It's too late. It's too late. We've had a head start on these folks all summer. Shane Reeves is kicking off his campaign in 2 weeks. We've been doing the work. And so we have wind underneath our sails. We have momentum under our wheels. We're really making progress. And Lord knows if I'm able to get 23,000 non-Democrats to vote for me in this election, all 4 of those people are going to Nashville. We will sweep Rutherford County. And our campaign is confident that we can do that. We're actually pretty confident that Joe Biden can win Rutherford County. If Joe Biden wins Rutherford County, these folks are going to Nashville. And the big thing that, my campaign would say, and we're all working together, is we need y'all's help desperately. This is the year, if you give $20 to give 40. If you do 1 or 2 shifts to do 4. This is the year to take all the yard signs and put in a little extra effort. This is a huge election. As the vice president says, we know it in our bones, but there's a lot of openness to non-Democrats because they can count to 10. They can see reality in the eyes. They can read their gospel and see what's going on in their community. So this doesn't really line up with my faith values. This economic situation doesn't count, doesn't add up to 10 of what we should be doing. I think that science is real and perhaps we should defeat COVID. And so there's a lot more folks that are thoughtful in our community. My team has been talking to them every day. These teams have been talking to them every day. But the big thing that if I'm going to pitch anything, this is the year to empty out, your resources as much as you can to these campaigns, to give to ones, to give to all of us for working together. But we all need your help. And so we give weekly. You can give $20 a week for the next 8 weeks. It's a big deal for us. Make the volunteer calls, invest in these campaigns. We will not win this election by talking over tea. We will win this election by getting out on the doors as much as we can, being events, getting in the community. So, we're humbly, all of us are asking for your help, but you're not investing into a black hole. You're investing, as you saw, my young people here, we've been working all summer, all spring. Mariah and Brandon and Chase and company have been working, and we haven't been working just on Democrats. God bless the Democrats. We just need more folks. So I think there is openness, and it's because we've done the work. And it's because we're known in our community. I was born here in '89. Mariah's been a part of this community as a community leader for a decade plus. Brandon's been on the ballot twice. Chase is a lifelong Tennessean. Matt's an Oakland High School grad, worked here his entire life. We have Mary Vaughn, of course, her historic connections to MTSU and right here in Tennessee. We're not coming in and off the sidelines. We're known in these communities, and I think all of us have respect among Republicans right here in Rutherford County.
Great. Thanks, Chris. Anyone else want to take a shot? Matt?
Yeah. You mind if I, to Judy's point, you asked, have you seen a difference, I think was your question, between maybe voters? I would say yes, to a certain extent. I have been surprised by some folks who now have Trump signs in their yard in my neighborhood, but I also have had a number of people that I know personally who were Trump supporters in 2016 that are like done, absolutely done with Trump, are shocked that some of their friends and family are such strong Trump supporters. So those have been some good conversations to have. And to add on to that, I have seen a difference in, when I talk to folks kind of randomly in the community, a difference between 16 and 18 and 18 and 20. I feel like there are folks in Middle Tennessee who are becoming more educated on the political system, who are becoming more aware of what is happening on a federal level and on a state level. So I am encouraged because, sometimes you go out there, you put yourself out there and you run, and you really don't know if you're making a difference. But I would say that we are definitely making a difference, that we are pushing the needle in the right direction, and that there are more people in Rutherford County who are becoming more politically aware, and they are Democratic leaning voters. So I think we're moving to a better place every election cycle.
Great. Okay. Anyone else want another? Okay, Ms. Vaughn, go ahead.
I agree with Matt on a lot of the statements that he and others have made, but I also think that some of the people that have indicated to me that they are now not going to vote Republican, okay, because they, of course, are feeling some of the same things that we're feeling. They understand some of the things that we've understood for a little while now, and they're uncomfortable with it. They don't want to say that people are liars. They don't want to say too much about that. Now, they don't mind saying that about our current administration, but other local leaders, they say a little bit about them and say most of the things they do say is that they haven't heard anything from them. We're doing, I think all of us are doing a pretty good job, especially under the circumstances, but I think that the Republicans are helping us. They don't have a good record of voting the way their constituents want them to vote. They vote according to what is designated for them. They're non-thinkers. They're not brave. We've seen that at Congress. But we've got new people who are coming out and saying, this is ridiculous. I'm kind of like my mother, old school, okay? We got people who believe in that, who know that that makes the difference when parents are engaged, when neighbors and professionals who know better are teaching people who don't. So they're making our jobs a little bit easier, and I hear that quite a bit. And I heard someone say that they didn't know my counterpart. And I said, well, that's the best thing I've heard the whole time. I said, you just gave him a compliment. And so everyone laughed because when I bring the name, when they ask me, because, I'm not running so much against him as I'm running for my people. I'm running for the right. I'm running because somebody of high authority put it in my heart to run. But we're stepping forward as honest people who are going to tell you the truth. And like I used to tell people, sometimes the truth hurts, but it's going to be better on the long run. Our environment's going to be better. People we interact with are going to be better. Our young people are learning, and they know when the truth is not in that person's character. So I think they're all proud of us. I'm proud of you to be a part of you. Thank you so much for asking that question.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Vaughn. Any other candidate, or do we want to move on to the next question? Let's move on to the next question. Yes, Kay, please unmute yourself.
Jenny.
There you go. We got you, Kay.
All right. My daughter is still trying to talk to me here through the phone. I'm sorry. I wanted to join Judy and all the Obama mamas in welcoming all of you. I watch a little too much MSNBC, and it's just wonderful for me to see normal people who are good people doing the right thing. And I really appreciate you all running, because if you don't have people running in the Democratic Party, you don't ever win. So I just want to thank you. And I do want to ask a question. I'm sure everybody noticed how the General Assembly and the governor reacted so harshly to protesters. And I want to know, do you think it's just more of a conservative place now in Tennessee, or do you think they're a little bit afraid of us? So I'll mute and you all can carry on, please.
Looks like Dr. Vaughn wants to take that one again. Dr. Vaughn.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much for asking that. I think a lot of people are intimidated and afraid. I just have not seen so many people afraid of telling the truth, who are by other strong forces are threatened. I think our Congress was threatened. I think that people who are in the Republican Party seem to be threatened, and the result is they have to resign. You either comply or resign. Does that sound like a country that we should be excited about and want to continue the way we're going? I don't think so. And I think a lot of other people have recognized that. I just think that I'm afraid of what's going to happen if we don't get in. Yeah, I'm sure you must be. And those of us who try to live by and are consider ourselves Christians, we know what the Bible says about all the stuff that's happening now. And we also know that we've got people, but we have to be soldiers, and we got to stand up for what's right. And what we're doing now is not right. Other countries see it, and we've gotten a bad rap for that. We've got the new president and these new offices, we have to be soldiers of Christ and keep up the good work. We cannot be afraid. Yes, we are threatened with fear from the environment. Look at what's happening to the environment. We have just torn up the earth that God has given us. I mean, it's just horrible. I mean, the kinds of things that we are forced, the environment that we're in now, we are having first time things happen to the weather. It's ridiculous. Snow one way, 90 degrees one day. The next day we got snow, we got flooding, we have fires that we've never had before. We've had conditions to indicate that we have a serious environmental problem. And yet people want to put things over their eyes to say, I don't see it. Well, God gave us all sense. Okay. And as the little kids say, I know better than that, Dr. Vaughn. I said, yes, I know you do. And we're going to try to do better. And you know why I have hope? And they said, why? Because you guys are so smart. That's why. He's moving.
Brandon, you're unmuted.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think, to get to the question about protesting, it's a couple of things that's going on here. I think, let's be quite honest, it's about that they didn't like the way folks were protesting, that they made it a felony. And what's the implications of a felony? And, we also have to call out that this may have been slightly racially motivated. There may have been some bias here. We had Governor Lee, who did not want to meet with the Black Caucus. They requested a meeting with him to talk about this protesting. And then when you saw how the protesting bill was being debated, they didn't even really know what was in it. So we know it was probably from ALEC, which that's a whole nother thing. But I think at the end of the day, it was about that they didn't like the form of protest, and there was some racial bias there. As an activist, in my heart, I'm an activist by trade, if you will. It's a really scary thing to know that our state legislature decided that to curtail a First Amendment right because they didn't like the way folks were protesting.
Great point, Brandon. It probably is unconstitutional, I think, and you're exactly right. I mean, anyway. Mariah, would you like to add to this?
I would, thank you. Kay, to your question, yes, they are afraid of us. They're afraid of change. This is a page right out of Trump's fear tactics, and it's been working nationally. They've been using the what's happening in Portland and at other very tense places of protest where military style aggressions are happening from, and these communities have really turned into a police state. And they've been using that to bring fear to the citizens of Tennessee at a time when we are continuing to push forward some of the most extreme legislation, across the country, right here in our state, and not just with this protest bill, but some anti-LGBTQ bills that have been pushed forward. And so it's really fear. They're using every page that they can to bring fear to make people not want to vote against them. And I think it's actually doing the opposite in a lot of cases, kind of to touch back to the question that had been out there before. There are definitely going to be people that fall into that fear. There are going to be people who believe that, defunding the police means we want to eliminate the police altogether, that are taking these statements and twisting and turning them and calling the Black Lives Matter movement a hate group and all of that. There will be people that believe that. And the reality is those people were never going to be voting for us anyway, at least not this year. But there are a lot of people that can see through that rhetoric and that see through what this legislation truly is. And those are the people that have been watching since 2016 that might have voted for Trump, that might be leaders of faith that have been, kind of looking at the rhetoric as it's come through. And I know many people that have stood next to me in Murfreesboro Loves that are now thinking protest is a felony, really, that some of these pieces of legislation have really turned people off. And I'm really excited about that because people, kind of going back to that question, people know us, have you met Mariah? Like that's been my thing for the last 4 years. People know me and they talk to me about what these things really mean. And when we have those conversations, they see this legislation is just meant to hurt people, and it's not really meant to move our state forward. And so, you know, we are about moving our state forward and doing so together. So thank you so much for that question.
Great answer, Mariah. And you touched on something. It really is political theater is what's happening in Nashville. It's I think a lot of these guys know it's unconstitutional, but they're feeding the base, so to speak, and giving them what they think they want. So, okay, well, next question. Let me see here. Anyone want to raise their hand with a question? Okay, well, I've got one on standby if you guys want to take it. I've got a question for all of the candidates. Recently, as recent as last week, I know that we all talk about healthcare and how important healthcare is, and how it's at the top of everyone's, especially the Democrat agenda. Last week, the agency that let me see here. What is the name of this agency? It's the Tennessee Health and Development Agency voted against Vanderbilt Medical wanting to build a $135 million hospital right here in Murfreesboro in Rutherford County. And they're not going to be allowed. They've already purchased the land, but according to the health agency, they're not going to be allowed because there's not a certificate of need. I'm sure the candidates are familiar with that. So I'd like to ask the candidates how you feel about Vanderbilt's proposal. Do you approve or disapprove? And would you use your elected position to pressure this agency to allow a Vanderbilt hospital to be built in Rutherford County? And do you see anything wrong with that? Does it hurt healthcare in Tennessee by Vanderbilt building a $130 million hospital? Chase, you want it?
Yeah, definitely. So, yeah, first, St. Thomas is a great hospital. Both my kids were born there, right? But the thing is, at the end of the day, you're supposed to have competition when it comes to this stuff, right? It's supposed to be a free market principle. That's what every conservative politician has said since Reagan. It's supposed to be the market decides. And in this case, you have a group that is basically saying, no, we're not going to do that. We're not going to let that happen. Instead, we're going to put our thumb on it, and we're going to make sure that St. Thomas is able to expand a little bit. It was an 8 emergency room beds and 8 overflow beds for their existing hospital. So they put their thumb that way. Here's my thing. There is something in the neighborhood of 20,000 folks from Rutherford County that go up to Vanderbilt every single year for medical needs. They make that drive all the way up I-24, and just like all of us know, it is the worst possible commute that anyone could ever do. When I worked for Jason's Deli there in Murfreesboro, I also rotated around to Franklin and to Nashville, those delis as well. And when I had to make that drive, it was a guaranteed hour and a half both ways. There's no way around it at all. To make that drive for a medical reason would be absolutely terrifying. And to make that on a regular basis, it just boggles my mind. This is one of those where, again, the state has a lot of these just no-brainer things, right? Expanding Medicaid, that's a no-brainer. Giving our public school teachers better pay, that's a no-brainer. This primary issue with Vanderbilt coming down to Rutherford County, same thing. It should be a no-brainer. It should happen because they're bringing 130 new beds, they're bringing $134 million, and they're bringing so many new jobs right there. It's, again, like, that's one of the easiest votes I can cast up there, and it's one of the easiest phone calls I can make to put pressure on that board to make a different decision. Great,
thanks, Chase. Chris, you want to take this one, or Mariah? Go ahead.
I was just going to say, to add on to what Chase had to say, it's unfortunate that Vanderbilt can't move the hospital a little bit, further into some of the rural communities where the needs are great. But as we know, as our hospitals are closing across the area, one of the reasons why Rutherford County's hospitals are so crowded is because people are coming from Cannon County and all across Middle Tennessee because Rutherford is the next stop where we have, a great hospital system. And so adding, it does make sense to bring Vanderbilt facility to one of the fastest growing communities in the country. Right here, it's close enough to their home base, but also close enough to some of the rural communities that could definitely benefit from access to more healthcare. Again, it's unfortunate that they can't expand, a little further east or a little further south, because some of those communities really could desperately use more access to emergency facilities, especially ones as reputable, worldwide reputation as Vanderbilt has. And so I think it's very unfortunate that this decision was made, especially because they're not really giving any reason, the certificate of need, but there's not that the hunger for competition definitely is something that they only use when it's convenient for them on the Republican side.
Yep, great.
It's not a value system they actually, use when making decisions.
Yeah, great point. Brandon, Chris, you guys want to take a shot at this? Go ahead, Chris.
The only thing I would add to what's been said right before is it's remarkable to me that all throughout the Obama administration, we heard the hysterics about drug czars and Medicare czars and healthcare czars and death panels. And this unelected board decides whether or not a hospital gets to be built in our community. An unelected board that seems clearly to be influenced by the bottom line of the St. Thomas healthcare system and not by the well-being of you and your families. The only policy highlight that I want to do from the federal level, obviously we must expand Medicaid, and we need to do it immediately. We lost a dozen rural hospitals in my adult life in 10 years since Congressman Desjardins has been in office. But also one of the things I'm proposing as part of my pathway to single payer is a rural hospital guarantee. The rural hospital guarantee says that within 60 miles of any Tennessean, there will be a hospital, which would pave the way for 6 hospitals in the 4th congressional district. And first and foremost, we would get the incentives to private providers like St. Thomas or Vanderbilt to make it more appealing for them to step out of Rutherford County into the rural areas. But if they aren't able or willing to do it, then the government will build a hospital. Chase Clemens down in Fayetteville, Lincoln County has a hospital now that is publicly funded. Now, the reality of it is locally funded hospitals struggle. Facility in Rutherford County, but Mariah's right too. We need to incentivize building hospitals in rural communities, and that takes government action. And particularly, it does not take government inaction and government creating unelected boards of corporate interests to protect St. Thomas, which is doing quite well right now.
Great point. Brandon, do you want to take a shot at this?
Yeah, I would just say that, when we have a board that upholds basically a monopoly on how we do anything, whether it's healthcare or anything, we have to really reevaluate that and ask ourselves, is that creating a family-friendly economy that works for everyone? And I believe in this particular instance, no. So I would do everything in my power as a state representative to ensure that we have that competition, that we have the choice. My son was actually born in the Vanderbilt Hospital, so I may be a little biased here, but I know that there's a need in our community. I think every candidate's pointed out why. Mariah's has a very excellent point about these rural hospitals closing and folks coming to Rutherford County. So guess what does that? That means we need more hospitals. So that's my opinion on that.
Can I jump in here real quick?
Yeah, jump in there, Matt. Sure.
I just want to state that, for the past 10 years, ever since the ACA has been law, Republicans have fought against it. They have tried to run on repeal and replace the ACA for years. I remember when Diane Black was thinking about running for governor back in 2017. I know, Stephen, you were there, and Mariah, I'm pretty sure Brandon was there too. And she had a lot of angry constituents come from the 6th district that wanted to ask her, what is your health care plan? And when they asked her that directly, She said, pass. You know, you're sitting U.S. Congresswoman. You've been running on repeal and replace for years, and you still don't have a plan. So my point is that Republicans never had a plan to begin with. They're not interested in making a plan. They've been playing with people's lives for years. They're more concerned about profits than they are people. And we need real healthcare solutions. You know, added on to that with this expanding Medicaid, I remember sitting in then Jim Tracy's office and Bill Ketron's office too, our state senators at the time. They both said the exact same thing to me. They said, we can't afford it. We can't afford it. Well, 90% of the money would come from the federal government, and the other 10% was agreed that the Tennessee Hospital Association would pay. Well, then they said, well, we can't trust the feds. We don't know if the feds can come through on that. Well, you take their money when it's for state parks. You take their money when it's for roads. You take federal money for all kinds of things, right? Like Tennessee is given, like, you know, we get $2 from the federal government for every $1 we get. So it's an absolutely disingenuous argument to say that we can't afford to expand Medicaid, but this is just another piece of evidence for us to say, look, they're not interested in healthcare for the people. So we're interested in it any way possible. I do want to throw one thing out there. I was with a live stream with Chase, and we were talking about the telehealth bill that they passed recently. And he made a good point on that. He said, the telehealth thing is great, but it's only one piece of the puzzle. And if you're not providing money for rural hospitals, or you're not trying to do something about this in and out network of doctors that exist at the hospitals, if you're not trying to make sure that people have affordable health care, the telehealth is not going to solve all your problems. So anyway, that's my spiel on healthcare right now.
Great, Matt. Thank you. And I agree. I think this is really an issue where folks in Rutherford County can especially press this, because there are a lot of Republican voters that are not happy about the fact that Vanderbilt is basically being blocked out and essentially ensuring a monopoly for St. Thomas. And so I think that's really a good issue for our candidates in Rutherford County to drive on. Okay, next question from the Obama Mamas. Now, I know you ladies have a lot of questions. I've been around you a few times, so let's ask these candidates a question. We've got about 15 more minutes left.
I have a question.
Okay.
This is Peggy. You know, I'm listening, excuse me, so happily listening to all the candidates. And my question is, when you go to office in Nashville, what priority would you choose? You know, you have to work with other people to get things done, but you probably can have some choices about what you think is most important. What would that be? Thanks.
Yeah, okay. Whoever wants to start. Matt, you want to start on that one?
Sure. What the question was, what's the most important piece of legislature to focus on?
Yes.
I would,
top priority?
Medicaid expansion would be number one thing. I think all the candidates here would agree with me on that one. But, you know, like I was saying earlier, we've got other problems during this pandemic. Our unemployment compensation fund has been badly underfunded over the years. They had time to pump some more money into that, or just pump some more money into staffing the thing so people wouldn't be waiting weeks and weeks and weeks for their checks. And of course, you know, there's no kind of comprehensive tracing or testing. And if we want to take this pandemic seriously and we want to reopen businesses and schools safely, we would take it seriously. We would have a comprehensive testing and tracing.
Thank you, Matt. Mariah.
Yeah, I would just add to that, you know, a lot of that, the true answer to that question would be depending on where we are with this pandemic. And it's so hard to predict that today. I anticipate that we will not be too much further along than we are today. In which case we're about to face a housing crisis as well, as people are have been unemployed for months. And they have been way behind, weeks behind, months behind on unemployment checks. There has been a hold on kind of a moratorium on the proceedings to, you know, for eviction, but that's going to catch up eventually. And so I would say that with the kind of pending housing crisis, that's going to be something that we're going to have to deal with very soon, if it's not something that is dealt with before then. And then, of course, if we are in a position where we are kind of coming out of this, if, hopefully, looking at the bright side, that, of course, as Trump says, on, the day after the election, this whole, fake news pandemic will be over. If that's the case, and we find ourselves on the other side of this, then Medicaid expansion, and making sure that our education, our teachers are taken care of, that our students are taken care of, and that we're able to catch our students up on the learning that they've not been able to get consistently through the crisis that we've been in the last semester.
Thanks, Mariah. Dr. Vaughn, what would be your top priority when elected and sent to Nashville?
Well, one of the signs of a good leader is not to bury themselves in the everyday stuff and some of the bigger issues that's going to take a little bit more time to work out. What I'm hoping that, since many of my colleagues and these good candidates that we have here, as you have heard them speak, they will be bringing forth these many issues that I am facing in my district. But what I'm looking for is, I don't know, I agree with them with the pandemic, with the overstepping of our policing, and innocent people that are getting killed. The list is very long. I'd have to see where we are. I think that all of us are going to have a plate full all the time for a while, where even our most important personal issues are going to be put to the side and try to give people immediate help. All of these are urgent issues. I don't know how you can take urgent and make it less urgent. I'll just have to say that I hope to communicate well with my colleagues and be able to map out a plan that we can address all of them. But of course, there'll be one issue, and it may be the children going to school and catching the virus. I mean, it could very well be that. It could be somebody killed by overzealous policeman who hasn't been trained properly. And I don't know. Every day brings in a new kind of problem. And certainly our lack of leadership gives way to that, in that there's no actual leadership that any of the business books go by, or any of our top leaders, any of our successful business people have sanctioned. So all of us are going to have to keep a lot of hats going, or a lot of balls up in the air at the same time. I don't want to say that a person's life is not as important as the children being educated, or even the children's lives. I don't want to say that the pandemic that should have been addressed at a higher level is going to take all of my time. All of our responsibilities are directed to our constituents. We've got to make sure that Tennessee does not fall into this quagmire or a gutter of stuff that seems to be going on. We've got to be the ones who instill the confidence back to the American people, to our constituents. A lot of them have just lost faith, and a lot of them are in fear. And back to the other question, is that a lot of people have told me they are afraid of this government. And they have a right to be. We have a Congress that has not addressed what it's supposed to address. The House is working overtime trying to get things done. And it seems like the Senate, I'm not sure where they are, okay? I'm not sure where they are. They could be just clones sitting up there. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Okay. And so people are just not trusting people anymore.
Right.
And I'm hoping, if nothing else, this group of people, good people that are running, and Hale and Mariah and Matt, all of you, Brandon, I mean, these are sincere people who want to solve the problems. So I'm sorry that I cannot answer specifically, but I can tell you I have a passion about all of those things. And I'm going to work with what is urgent, as a good leader should, but also don't forget about the other people who are still suffering, but they may not be dying.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Vaughn. Brandon, would you like to, what would be your top priority, Brandon, when you're elected?
Yeah, my top priority would be expanding Medicaid. I agree with Matt on that one. We have 1 in 10 Tennesseans without health care coverage. We have free money on the table. The Republicans are not. That's day one. You know, once we can get enough folks, we can stop these procedural things. We can put up Medicaid expansion to a vote, and get the money that you and I and everybody are paying into at this very moment. So I think it's the most logical. It's the simplest thing we could get done, especially during a pandemic. Yeah, as Dr. Mary Vaughn said, we have a lot of other things we need to address as well. But I think just logically, that is the first thing, and it's going to save lives. It's going to, you know, the test is free, right? And we had a death in our community because he didn't have health care. He didn't want to go to the doctor. That should never happen. And that's not going to happen anymore once we all are elected.
Thank you, Brandon. Christopher Hale, big job up in D.C. What would be your top priority? What will you champion in Washington, D.C. for the people of the 4th District of Tennessee?
You know, the way that new administrations often work is a 100-day legislative agenda. So that would be for hopefully the next president, Joe Biden, starting from January 20th to around Memorial Day. I think if I win this election, I'm very confident that we're going to sweep Rutherford County. Chase will get in office, Mariah, Brandon, Matt, and Mary Vaughn will get in office, and Bill Lee will face so much pressure on day one. If we win this office, I am confident that the first thing that Brandon and company and Mariah and Matt and Chase and Mary will do is get Medicaid expansion passed. I'm confident. The political pressure will be too great. There's just that our elections would be a sign that Medicaid expansion has come. There have been 40 states who expanded Medicaid, most recently Missouri. Missouri is not a conservative, or not a liberal state. It's a very conservative state with conservative legislature, but the people on the ballot voted for Medicaid expansion. So what I want to do is, after you all get Medicaid expansion in Tennessee, the easiest political win that we can get is to get you a pay raise. Tennesseans deserve a pay raise. We live in the highest per capita minimum wage state in the country. I am 31 years old. These minimum wage has not changed my entire adult life. You hear that? When I started a working job, the minimum wage was the same as it is today. It's a moral affront. It's an absurdity. To me, raising the pay is a pro-life issue. You know, Republicans talk about family values and pro-life values. Lord knows, anyone who works 40 hours a week should get a roof on the table. A roof over their head, food on the table, and savings in the bank. I think it's just a baseline moral issue, and I'm confident the votes are there. Honest to God, if we had a different president, I even think of a Republican Senate, the votes are there. People want a pay raise. I like to do a pay raise that is tiered towards the gross domestic product and the inflation. What that means is, just getting that very briefly, is that you don't have to have political courage to get pay raises. It just simply is connected to the economy. It's a rate that's connected to reality. So the inflation rate and the minimum wage are connected hand in glove. So I would like to see a tiered minimum wage. So we don't have to do this every 10 years, 15 years. We don't have to wait for the political headwaves to change it. Let's have a set minimum wage that is reflective to the economic realities of this country. And so that's my big priority after these folks get Medicaid expansion passed, is let's get an easy victory. An easy victory that we can get for every Tennessean within the first 100 days of this new administration, of this new government, is raising everyone's wage.
Great. Thank you, Chris. Okay. Any more questions? Judy, I see your hand up, but it may be up from earlier. Do you have another question?
Really just a public service announcement. We
Okay.
met last night for the election commission, and they have already received 3,100 requests for mail-in ballots, and they expect that to multiply tenfold. They've increased the number of counting board members so that there will be adequate people to count that day. But just to notice to everybody, please vote early, whether you do it by absentee mail-in or early voting, which begins the 14th of October through the 29th.
Judy,
Yes.
how are they going to count the votes? Are they going to count the votes that day, or
Yes.
start? How are they going?
I'm sorry. By state law, they cannot begin counting until election day. And Alan told us last night with 24 vote that we've got 10 scanners, and he's going to team people up. There will be individuals whose assignment will be to open the envelope with the ballot, and then there will be ones who do the scanning. And each team, just so everyone knows, is comprised of one Democrat and one Republican. And then there is a Democratic and Republican officer who oversees everything. If there is a problem with the ballot going through the scanner, and they tried a couple times and it won't work, then a Democrat and a Republican sit down with a new ballot. They copy off what's there with an officer looking over their shoulder. And so it's a really, I think, secure process. And we've got several Democrats who worked it. Peggy did, and we had some other people who worked it and felt like it was very secure, and they were comforted by the transparency of the process.
Now, when they can't get it to scan, you said it'll be an officer looking at them.
The officer stands behind the Republican and Democrat. One of the individuals calls off the numbers that are on that ballot, because they're not by names, they're by numbers. And the other person marks it in. And then after the officer makes sure that it's the exact same, then they put it through the scanner again. Normally, the reason it doesn't pick up on the scanner is there's a tear in the ballot, but it will accept pencil or pen. They recommend you do not use a red marker, but a black, blue pen or pencil, and the scanner will pick it up.
Okay, you're going to have a Democrat and a Republican actually counting. The officer, will they alternate between a Democrat and a Republican, or will it be?
I think both officers are back there behind the two when they're doing that. There aren't that many times when the scanner doesn't read the ballot, but every time there is, that's what happens.
So will you all compare, say for instance, I'm just fictitious number, you got 10,000 mail-ins. Okay, when you give your total, are you going to reconcile that between, you have 10,000 votes as compared to 10,000 envelopes that were open?
When they open the envelopes, they stack them up, they put the ballots in a stack, and then they've got a barcode tab, and every pile has to, if they open and have 100 envelopes, they've got to have 100 ballots, and they've got to have 100 barcodes. And if not, then they go back and they keep counting until everything stacks up or they find the discrepancy. But every time they open an envelope, there's supposed to be a ballot. If not, then they call the officers and it's marked as spoiled. And they didn't have, in August, I think they only had about 100 spoiled ballots. And a lot of it was because people didn't sign their envelope when they sent it in and that sort of thing.
Okay, so if someone didn't sign it, we're not sending it back, it's just a lost vote, or what?
Well, if they send it in and it's not signed, the staff contacts that person, and they have the opportunity to come in prior to election day and sign it. So they give them the opportunity to do it, and a lot of people do.
So you all going to start counting at 7 o'clock?
Well, they did in August, but he said he didn't know if it would start quite as early this time. It just depends on the number of people who are, the number of ballots that come in. And he said he's got enough volunteers to have at least 50 workers doing the absentee counting. And they're not going to do it on the square this time. They're going to move it to the Vine Street Annex because there's more space.
Okay. Thank you, Judy.
Okay, yeah. Great information, Judy, as always. Fortunate to have a member of the Election Commission here as part of the Obama Mamas. Fortunate to have the Vice Mayor of the City of Murfreesboro as part of the Obama Mamas here as well. Thank you, Ms. Scales, for those questions. Anyone else with a question? We are right at 8:30, and that was the ending time. Kay, would you like to say anything to the group?
I'm gonna, okay. This is getting past my bedtime here, but I just want to tell you all, thank you so much, Stephen, for moderating. You've done a great job. Thank you, candidates. I feel inspired. I might be able to have less nightmares tonight when I go to bed. It tells me my internet is unstable. So, anyway, I just want to thank all of you. You're beautiful people. I love you, and just keep on fighting. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kay. It's been a real honor, and I look forward to seeing all of you in person. Let's have a huge Obama Mama party when this is all over. What do you say? Everybody, right. Well, unless anyone has anything else, candidates, I know everyone tuning in is very appreciative. I know I'm appreciative of your dedication to try to bring democracy to this state and to this country. So thank you, Obama Mamas, for having such a reliable organization and platform. Madeline Scales, yes, ma'am.
I just like to thank also all the candidates. I know what you're going through. I've been there. So just run every day like you're 200 votes behind. That's what my mom always told me. And
That's
we're
right.
lifting you up in prayer. And good luck. And you all stay safe. Stay safe.
Yep. Thank you guys so much. If anyone else has anything else.
Steve,
Yes.
I just want to thank you for doing a marvelous job as usual.
Thank you. Thank you.
It doesn't hurt that you have a lot of experience doing that and with the elections and that sort of thing. I do appreciate the Obama Mamas and this process and my colleagues. I think that, again, if you vote for us and give us a chance, I think you're going to see an immediate difference in what will happen in the legislature. Okay, I think you'll see an immediate return for your faith and support. Thank you.
Steve, can you close us out in prayer?
Yes, ma'am. Would you like for me to?
That'd be fine.
Or someone, would anyone like to? Okay. Let's bow our heads. Dear Lord, thank you for giving us the opportunity to all get together as friends and talk about the future of our country and the future of our children. Dear Lord, thank you for the health of all of our members and the continued health of the people of Rutherford County and the great state of Tennessee. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, everybody.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Appreciate you. Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, Kay.
Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.